Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about tech leads. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, as a tech lead, how would you deal with a situation where if a software engineer in your team doesn't agree to one of your review comments and then doesn't have a valid explanation for not addressing your comment? Well, if he doesn't have a valid reason or valid explanation, like I assume he has some type of explanation because he usually isn't like it's very rare for me to find that software developers kind of go, yeah, no, I don't want to do that because I like no reason. Like there's usually a reason, whether it's valid or not. That's a whole different thing. But let's just assume that my interpretation of what you're saying here is right. That he's simply giving me an explanation, or she, that is not something I agree with, or something that I don't believe to be a valid explanation. And so what I usually do here is that I try to be democratic about these things. I present my arguments for why I believe something should be done in a certain way, and then basically I make an assessment for myself. Like because the thing is, as a tech lead, in theory, I can force this situation, but I don't believe in doing so. If you work with me, you will see that I actually, this is super frustrating for some people. I don't care what your job is. I don't care if you are literally the most senior person on staff. If your logic and rationality for the opinions you have or the arguments that you are presenting are not holding water, or like basically I can poke hole in them and then you don't have an answer. I don't care who you are, and it's the same thing for me. I expect myself to be able to present a set of reasonable arguments for why I believe something to be true, because engineering and I are, and it's my argument at the very least, should as far as is possible be about logic and rational thinking and things like that. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are things that are a little bit fluffier, where it's a little bit more gray, where it's a little bit harder to make a really strong argument for one thing or another. It comes down to experiences, and here it's a really tricky thing because experiences may differ. So if they feel like they should be doing things in one way because they know that A, B, and C is going to be better if they do it that way, and I go, yeah, but you're forgetting about these other factors over here that I argue are more important than your thing that you are optimizing for, because you can't write perfect software and you're always trading one thing for another, and it can be up to discussion of in when it comes to questions of what is more important. Classic one is, we take a really simple example: performance versus simplicity. That's like, I mean, that's we can argue about that until the cows come home. We're never going to settle on that one. And so when such a situation comes up, if I have presented all my arguments and I've done my best to explain myself, and I feel like the thing that we're talking about, because there's one factor I have to consider as a tech lead here, and that is whether or not this is in line with what my company expects us to do. Because some questions might be things that we should, I argue, vote on or have a third party come in on, because that's usually how I deal with these things. I usually say, all right, then we will present our arguments to one of the other people in our team, for example, or some other person, like literally anybody, because now we do the democratic thing. And then if that's one option. But if there is, an example would be someone tells me that I don't think that we should write unit tests, or like something that way I know for a fact that this is not up for discussion. Like there is no discussion to be had because some, like my manager or my boss or so forth, expects me to make sure that this is happening. Then I just tell them that, all right, this is not something that we can debate on, because this is something that is expected of you within your role. If you feel that I am unreasonable now, you're very welcome to go to my manager and report like what I said, and we can have that discussion. That's okay. It's not always that is necessary. It's very rare. In fact, I'm very fortunate in that regard. for some people I'm frustrating as well, because some people want to have a lot of strong opinions about a lot of things. I'm much more in the sort of person who will go, unless I know for a fact that you're doing something that is really, really like that has really large impact, or something that is going to be significantly bad for the overall health of the system or the code base or something like that, I'm not going to get up in your face about how you name your variables. I'm not going to get up in your face for how, like, every single, like, oh, like, are you using a iteration interface, like an iterator interface, like a map function or a for each or a where, or depending on what language you have, or are you using just a plain old loop, like a for statement or something like that? These are things I don't give a shit. I really don't. And I might mention things, but it's not something I'm going to push you on. And if we do get to that point, though, where we need to have these sorts of conversations, I usually do, as I said, the democratic thing, because I believe firmly that if I don't, as I said, if I don't have a reason where I can say this is going to cause a bug, or I have a suggestion that is basically going to save us from issues down the road, or something that is very important, then why am I fighting over this? Why would I fight over it? If I'm on vacation and they write a bunch of code, should I go back and just like check everything so it's up to my whatever standards I have? If the system is working, if I understand what the code is doing and my coworkers understand what the code is doing, then let them like I argue, have a little bit of wiggle room here. The one thing I truly despise, and I always make that so damn clear to everybody I work with, is when you create these nitty-gritty nonsense rules for, oh, there should always be a comment in the situation. My favorite one, I guess, is I basically, I want to spit in the face of every single .NET developer who forces me to say arrange, act, assert. That pattern, to always have a comment for that. I had a lengthy argument with a .NET developer a while back about this, and he said that, oh no, this is how we do it here, and I go, no. And I was the tech lead in this case, and they had already done this. Oh, but this is a practice we follow. I don't think we should have this practice, let's remove it. And like that just completely fucked him up. Basically, he just immediately like, what? You can't just change that. Well, yeah, actually I can, because I'm one of your coworkers and I don't like this pattern. So what is your reason for following this practice? Why is it so important for you? And then he went into like this whole rant about, oh, it's a best practice. I'm like, according to who? I've never seen it in any other language, and I know for a fact that there are quite a lot of .NET developers who don't follow this pattern. That you have the comments, you can still follow the structure. As I told them, you can follow the structure, you do the same thing. That's how a unit test usually works, but you don't have to put a comment on it. It's an arbitrary thing that you are only doing because you like it. There's nothing, there's no benefit to it. And he's go, yes, there's a benefit. It makes the code more readable. And so I counter, it makes it more confusing for me. Your move. And he has no comeback for that. And that's why I don't do these things. That's why I don't create arbitrary rules about subjective shit, that naming your branches in a very specific way, or like how you should think. Because the more rules you create, the more stuff people have to think about, and the more likely you are to have like conflicts over things that do not matter. In that little story of mine, you know how it ended? It ended with us arguing over this for an hour, and then me breaking the argument with him and like another coworker. And then I said, have you noticed something, guys? We have debated whether or not a comment that is literally just boilerplate comment that you put in every single line for, as I said, no other reason than you like it, because there can be no other reasons, like double quotes versus single quotes. You cannot make an argument for it that there's a rational reason why this is super important. It's just emotional. We fought that over this topic for an hour now. Yet you have not, in the entire pull request like I had submitted, you have not mentioned that I have missed writing tests for this situation and that situation. There is missing test like cases here and here and here, like things that actually has an impact on the quality of the software. And the reason why we had that little exercise together is because this is something I do sometimes. I want to see, because if I get a feel for that you're one of those people who have like all these arbitrary rules just because you think it's so important that everybody does your bullshit things, because for some reason everything is about you and your personal workflow, I will do things like that to force you into these conversations with me, and then we will dish it out. And then depending on situations, if if you have a good reason, absolutely, let's go for it. And if the whole team agrees, as I said, if everybody wants it, then we can have a democratic discussion about it. But I'm not going to accept some weirdo who has like a really strong opinion about something for some arbitrary reason and like just treat that as law. That's not how I am. And I don't care. I really don't care if I'm the tech lead or if somebody else is a tech lead or if it's so forth and so forth. You're going to have to come prepared for these sorts of conversations with me. And I can, and sometimes I've done this even with juniors, I've said so in other videos as well, where I will make a pull request with certain limitations or with an agenda where it's not about just writing the code now. I want to see how you react if I do this thing so that I can dish out with like the social aspects of the thing. Because sometimes you get a feel for people. Some people are like they're super chill and they're usually like they do a good job and like they're open to trying things out and stuff like that. Usually no problem. But then you have those people who causes problems if they don't get their way. These are the guys that I dish out really, really quickly. Or like I flush them out very quickly when I work in teams. And get them, lift them up so that they are visible to the managers so that they can be dealt with. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you don't agree with me in my comments and so forth, I usually say, all right, you are a professional. And I'm a professional. I like to think so at the very least. So unless I have a really good reason that like we're talking serious bugs, something is not in line with some decision from the company or something where I have to have an opinion, I can't just let you do what you want, then I put it to a vote. If I'm wrong, and this has been the case, guys, when I've been a tech lead, I can in theory just pull rank. Even when now I'm working like a principal engineer, like I have highest say of everybody in theory. And I always do the same thing. If I know that this is something that is a little bit subjective, I don't really have a really super strong reason why we should do A or we should do B. I always follow the same principle. If it's easy to change, if it's not like a massive commitment or something like that, then let it go. Put it to a vote, see if everybody agrees, and even if they don't agree with me, that's okay. We'll do your thing because we can change code in the future. But I will never accept people who make up these tiny little bullshit rules just so that they can have their perfect workflow because we work as a team. That means that the less we have to put, as I said, the less of these arbitrary rules we have, usually the better for everybody, because then everybody feels like they're not like gonna get weird comments and like really long conversations and angry glances from their coworkers for I don't know, not using uppercase, which was one time. I didn't use uppercase in the first word in my commit message. Like the first letter should be uppercase. That was a comment and a discussion. And people like that, these petty little people, you can just go and sit somewhere else, or I'm going to go to another team. Have a great day.